coming in. It's like I'm saying, get your answers on the chat. Your last takeaway was, we'll keep that going throughout the show. What we'll do though, we'll just bring that out. Get rid of that, and then we will hit the magic button. I hope it works. Hey! There we go. That's what we wanted. Hooray! Fantastic. Less issues with the webcam today. Last week was a bit of a nightmare, it must be said. There we go. Hopefully I'm coming through all right. For some reason there's an echo. I can't quite fathom why there's an echo. That's better. There's still an echo coming from somewhere. If I do that, can people still hear me? Hello? That echo is not going away for some reason. That's really annoying. Oh well. Fortunately, it's not too loud. It might just be coming through my interface there. Either way, that is going to really annoy. Why is that doing that? So I can't mute that, because if I mute that, that will mute my microphone. I'll have to just give me 2 seconds, everyone. I'm just figuring this out. It's not from there. The only place that's registering it is there. How very strange. Oh well, either way. Can people hear the echo? That's the quick question I've got for everybody. Can you hear the echo of my voice? And it is an echo. So why is it doing that? Very, very odd. What we're going to do very quickly, we're just going to pause just for a sec. So so people can hear an echo. We're just going to very, very quickly, folks, just see if we can. I'm just looking very quickly. Yeah, there is an echo. Very, very irritating, and I'm just trying to figure out why out of nowhere it's echoing. That's very annoying. Yeah, apologies for the bit of the wonky start, folks. We'll get started properly in a second. I'm just going to see. It's a really annoying thing. How very bizarre. I can definitely hear the echo. I'm just quickly looking at a thing to try and get it solved as we're all chatting here, which I appreciate is not the way we really want to start the show. But it's very, very annoying. And I don't know why it's happened. There's nothing else monitoring the sound. I'm looking at my audio properties. If I do that, no, that's not done it. Ah, dear, that's frustrating. That is very frustrating. It's not done it normally, and I have no idea why this week, out of nowhere, it started doing it. I do that. Yeah, very strange. Haven't really changed much. Muted all other audio sources. So I've only got my mic going into it. We're going to roll with it. Guys, Gals and the Gender Fluid and all beyond the binary. It is Wednesday night. It's now well after 8 p.m. because technology hates me today. But it is the BOTW What's Current stream. My name's Anthony Russell, back once again with you to go through the weird, wonderful and exciting world of NIHL hockey here in Great Britain. We focus on the National Division. That is our bread and butter, our home port. But that doesn't mean that we do not miss anything and everything. We go through all of the action from across all 5 divisions. That means the National as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north and in the south. Yeah, apologies about the echo. Don't know what's causing it at all. If I mute it and unmute it, it's still there. So we're going to just try and roll on today and just hope that it doesn't do anything. But yeah, I'm really sorry, folks. It's annoying me too, but I don't know how to fix it. So I've tried looking at some stuff and we're just going to kind of roll on with it. However, please do take a moment just to go and share everything out. Get people joining in. The more people partying with us, the better. And it's always much more fun when it's interactive. The bit of housekeeping then. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source now for everything related to the NIHL National Division. And the best thing you can do right now is follow me on my weird and wonderful hockey journey. That website has 12 years worth of stuff from following the Basins like Bison. But where the Bison are not playing, that means that Muggins here is on a journey. You can join me for Banners on the Road, where you will get some in-depth write-up from all of the different hockey I see as I go around the south mostly, but also it's going to be branching out into the Greater Britain. This upcoming week, I'll be back home in Basingstoke for the Basingstoke Buffalo against the Peterborough Phantoms, and then the following week, Scotland, here we come. Dumfries. I'll be up in Scotland. And it should be an absolute whale of a time. But you've got all of the games I've been to this year, so I've managed to do one for every single game that I've been to, whether I've commentated on it, just watched it as a fan, whatever. There's a bunch of stuff there, as well as our Hockey Story series. I said last week that there was in pre-production. Got a guest lined up. Going to be a fun one if we can get that one sorted out. Just trying to match up diaries at the moment. As well as some other bits and pieces that are going to be coming from Hockey Stories. Like I say, stuff's in pre-production at the moment. October has been crazy, as our regular viewers will attest to. But there's a bunch of stuff there at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. And then, of course, you are here live on YouTube, the NIHL's first and best live show for all things NIHL related, which means a couple of things. Firstly, down there, links to all of the social media, Twitter, Facebook, as well as our virtual busking hat over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. That's all there. And, of course, you can do all the other great things to feed the algorithm hamster to keep him running on his wheel. Hit the like on the video, hit subscribe and follow the channel, and make sure, share this out. Like I say, stick it on your social media, get people watching. That's the great joy of YouTube, is you can join after the fact. However, the best thing that you get from joining us live here on Wednesday nights is you get the chat function, which is over there. Questions, comments, anything you want to chuck in as we're going along throughout the show, please do. It's great. And it makes the show so much better than rather than me just chatting away. But of course, if you are using the chat function, please remember the golden rule here at BOTW. DBAD. Don't be a dick. Be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings. And we're all going to have a wonderful time. I've seen in there, you're missing producer Nick. Ha ha. Thank you, Rio. For those of you who aren't familiar with producer Nick is a very, very long-suffering Nick who does the live streaming stuff for the Bees. Lovely man, really a man who seems to have endless patience. But yeah, I could have done with a producer this evening rather than trying to sort of smack buttons around myself, which is a bit frustrating. Like I say, with this echo that doesn't make sense. What's really funny is, like I said, I can still hear it now as I'm talking, and I'm looking through the OBS forums, and for whatever reason, it's just not everything it suggests that I do. Is just not, just doesn't make sense. So there we go. It's all fantastic. Like I say, we're just going to have to roll with it for tonight and deal with it and hope. Either way, there was a game last night in the NIHL National Division because that's the joy of half term, as we know. Leeds and Sheffield, and I think the first thing I want to talk about tonight on the show is the Knights. Now they have had a rocky couple of weeks, but a 4-1 win yesterday away at Ice Sheffield against the Steel Dogs. Now, are Leeds starting to look a bit more like Leeds, I think was the question I had. They've obviously had a couple of losses. They'd lost much sooner this season than they did last year. It took them well into November before they actually lost the game. and they've been hit a couple of times already. Already 2 losses on the campaign. And they are a game ahead of most of the teams around them as a result of having played on Tuesday. But for me, the question that we have at the moment is, are Leeds going to do another Leeds? Now, of course, we had the big news earlier this week of the return to the National Division of Jordan Buesa, who last year came down from the Elite League to play for the Steel. A little bit of extra attacking tweak. And when you count the imports, Brown, Buesa, Howler, Gah. That's terrifying. That is terrifying sounding levels worth of stuff. But like I say, the Leeds are starting to look a bit more like themselves, and I think that's ultimately gonna cause a few teams to a lot of perturbations. Are we going to start seeing other teams making some moves to kind of do bits and pieces? Because the other thing, of course, we need to talk about is the fact that the Bees and the Seahawks have started really, really well. Now, Hull, we know, are kind of at their full complement's worth of players, but do they maybe start looking at adding some extra Brit firepower? The Bees are in third. The Bees these are the 2 sides that last year finished 10th and 11th in the division, and we are 10 games into this season, and these 2 sides are already knocking around the top of the table. Now, Swindon, of course, are a bit of an X factor. Everything that's happened with the rink, we know this is going to be a wonky year for the Wildcats. That's a team that's now needing to build for the playoffs and getting back into their own building and making up those games. But the question I have for you, and I'm really interested, please put your thoughts in the chat because I really want to hear from people. Can the Bees and the Seahawks stay the course? Do they keep hanging around at this top part of the table? Remembering, of course, that the Bees in their back pocket have got the added thing of they've still got an import spot open. Do they add to that, or do they just keep faith with what's worked for them so far? Now, the issue for the Bees, arguably from a lot of people, will be that is resting very heavily on 3 players at the moment. Don Gabai and Marcel Balach up front, and Britton Priest in the net at the back, who his numbers are not astronomical, but having had the opportunity to watch him a couple of times with my own eyes, definitely a very good keeper. There's a few things I personally think he needs to tweak. I still maintain his rebound control is a little bit iffy for me, but he's so big and he uses that size so well, and he also stays really calm, and that's such a big thing, especially for a young netminder to do. So those are the questions for you kind of in the chat, and I'm really interested to hear what people think. Can Hull and can the Bees stay the course? Hull then, of course, this sort of revamped forward core, a lot of the prodigal sons coming home, Bobby Chamberlain back home, Lee Bonner back home. John McLaughlin has had a really good start in net for the Seahawks as well. No immediate doubts as to who's number 1. And so really interested to kind of see what happens there. Leeds and MK haven't really got going this season. I hate to say that for the rest of the league. It definitely does feel a little bit like that, Jamie. I can't deny. There's obviously been some turnover as well with MK, who are very, very high power. You think about the new addition in there. You take a guy out of the room like Lee Jameson, and you're adding in Ross Venus up front. Liam Stewart, of course, such a big character in general. He's gone. And so the idea that MK were going to immediately kind of hit the road and be the perfect team, I don't, was never going to be a thing. Much more, like I said, of a Tim Wallace team this year. There's kind of no holdovers from before. He's kind of kept the guys he wanted to keep. And I'm just, the thing for me is, and I've said it before and I said it last night, that relentless streak in Leeds, man. It's so hard to beat. It's so hard to beat, and I'm not quite... I wonder, can MK develop that? If MK find a way to develop that. The other question, of course, is, MK have already augmented their roster. Archie Salisbury being added in, which, of course, was a big plus for them. An under-18s player able to, fill that roster spot. When do MK start tinkering and potentially swapping guys in and out? The question will be asked, of course, about Sam Talbot at Guildford. Pointless so far this season, playing on the bottom lines, not getting tons of ice time. Does he come back to the National Division? I really hope he doesn't, and I actually really hope that Guildford find an alternative use for him, because using him more in that sort of grinding role isn't really for him. But, people sometimes start getting itchy feet when they're not getting the things that they want. are Guildford using him in the best way to, or to adapt, to using him to his skill set? Apologies for the trip of the language there, but yeah, there's a lot kind of left to be said. And of course, there's also those teams at the bottom that will come up. What will Swindon do? You don't think Swindon are gonna? I don't think Swindon are not going to change much, because also, who's going to sign for them right now? Really, Bristol, of course, have never been shy about changing guys up. They obviously have. Owen Sobchuk has gone, and they've got their new import in. Sheffield, of course. We'll see what happens there. It'll be interesting to kind of see whether they start making any changes or whether they kind of stay the course. Of course, they've added Sam Cooper recently, which is obviously a difference maker there. Peterborough, never shy. They've still, obviously Björkley Nordstrom has been a massive impact player for them since he's joined the Phantoms. A lot of questions still to be answered. Injury or ban's one of those, and the Bees start to slow down. Bees have a lot more depth to run full lines, but currently have 3D out as well. Hull will be fine. Interesting thoughts there, Rio. MK just missing that click, so you could say, but when they do, I can't see anyone coming close. I think the issue, like I say, the big thing, and I know Jamie won't like me saying it as well, Leeds still look better, I think, than MK. John Headley's really dialed in at the moment, which is a massive positive for MK. Higher save percentage and goals against than Gospel currently. Yeah, but certainly that's the thing. The thing I think we found from the end of last season, particularly the playoffs, is that Sam Gospel isn't perfect. The question between those two netminders is which one are you leaning on to steal a game at this level? And Headley's still young, and I still think should push on. But for me, I'm still picking Gospel if I'm picking a netminder to steal a game right now. I just am. And Leeds have built the same way that they built the last year before. They have arguably the best netminder in the division. I don't think we can argue whether you think Headley's number 1 or Gospel's number 2. Gospel is in that conversation for the best goalie in the league. The defence is good, not great, and then you've got firepower out of your wazoo. It's not a team for defending. So Gospel's numbers potentially could always suffer as a result. But Leeds, if they go 2 goals in the hole, can come back and score 3. We saw that against the Bees. We saw it against Peterborough as well. They can go into holes. Obviously, Swindon tripped them up. Swindon are a good team. And Leeds are not perfect. But the question there is, who do you bank on more to steal a game between Jordan Headley and Sam Gospel? I have to confess my money goes towards Sam Gospel right now. MK could do with a 5th line. I think the roster regulations would probably nix them on that one there, Rio. However, if they would, they could. I think they also probably have the money to do so. Let's be honest. MK's financial situation is relatively healthy. Either way, the one thing we need to do is we need to start looking at last weekend in the National Division. So if I hit the button, we'll flick our way through. Still wondering how this echo is happening. Maybe I should just mute everything and just do sign language and it'll kind of roll from there. Either way, a few games last weekend. We've of course just mentioned this game down here between the Steel Dogs and the Knights from last night. Another win for Leeds. Of course, they have now played a game more. Now, after their very tight game in Slough a couple of weeks ago, the Knights do knock off the Bees last Saturday at the Castle. 4-1 Leeds win over the Bees there to put some daylight between them. And a big, sizable win, of course, for the MK Lightning. Solway doing their usual trick. They're hanging around, but a 5-2 win, relatively comfortable from what I've been able to see for the Lightning there to push their way past the Sharks, who fresh off the back of their 4-point weekend immediately back in the loss column. The Raiders, well, they've had a very rocky start to the year, to the point where head coach Sean Easton has come out and made a statement to the fans about the fact that they're not happy with how things are going and that they want to improve. Well, a point is better than nothing. But still a 4-3 shootout win for the Telford Tigers in Romford this past Saturday. And then, well, we talked about him, Ivan Björkley Nordstrom, doing the business again. A 5-3 win for the Peterborough Phantoms away in Sheffield against the Steel Dogs. Steel Dogs are starting to look a little bit like they're sort of struggling a bit for ideas. But as always, we've said it before, we'll say it again. Steel Dogs hard-wired for post-season rather than the regular season. Sunday then, the 2 surprise packages of the season so far. A 4-3 win for the Bees in Slough against the Seahawks. The Seahawks clawing their way back into this one, but not quite enough. Point stay in Slough. Peterborough then managed with another sizable amount of goals. they consign the Raiders to yet another defeat, 7-5 that the Phantoms win in that one. A decent result there for the Phantoms. A 4-point weekend, one they kind of really needed. And what a tough weekend it was for Solway. They had MK away and then Leeds at home. And again, they stuck around. This is actually, believe it or not, their biggest defeat of the season so far. They lose by 4 goals, which is their biggest defeat margin. 7-3. The Knights pushed themselves away in the final period. It was 4-3 after 40 minutes to the Knights, and the Sharks just couldn't find a way to hang around, unfortunately. A 0-point weekend for Martin Grubb's side, and back to the bottom of the table they go, because after Saturday's fun and games, Bristol with a 6-1 win in their home game against the Swindon Wildcats on Sunday. Swindon then win their home game against the Pitbulls 7-3, but that 2-2 split is useful for the Wildcats. They desperately needed the points, and it pushes the Pitbulls off the bottom of the table. The Lightning then needed to battle it out. A very tight game in Shropshire on Sunday against the Telford Tigers, but the Lightning get the win and they keep pace with the Leeds Knights. 3-2 the Lightning win and over Telford. If you haven't seen the fight between Tim Wallace and Deacon Fielder, utterly hilarious. Watch it, it's great fun. Either way, that means we have a quick look at the National Division table, which looks like this. Is that after Leeds win last night, they have, of course, played that 11th game, the first team to do so. That pushes them ahead. They are still ahead of MK on the tiebreakers at the moment, so even if MK win their game in hand, Leeds would remain top. This is your reminder. There is no such thing as joint first place. There is enough tiebreakers where we have a decision. Bees then, third place, 13 points from 10, along with Telford, who have 13 points from 10 as well. Hull have only played 8 games, so 12 points there. 6 points, 3 games in hand on on Leeds. They'd be level on points if nothing else. Peterborough then as well on 12 points. They have, however, played 10 games. Sheffield in 7th place, they have 8 from 9. Swindon in the last playoff spot, currently they have 7 from their 8 games played. And then the 3 teams currently sitting outside of the playoff spot with about 10 games gone. Raiders have 6 from 10. Bristol have 5 from 10. And Solway on that lone 4 points from their 2 wins they've had so far. Although, looking at some of these goal numbers here, 42 goals conceded isn't terrible when you think about, look at that, the Bristol have conceded 53, Raiders have conceded 48, Peterborough in 6th place have conceded 43. The issue for the Sharks has been putting the puck in the net. 25 goals scored is the lowest of any in the division. We'll just quickly hop back and just look at the fixtures then for this upcoming weekend in the National. Nothing on Friday night, so we just look straight ahead to Saturday. The earliest face-off is at 6 p.m. Solway take on Hull. Nice close game, as close as you possibly can do. It's only about 3 hours, that journey. And then a 6:30 game in Slough between the Bees and the Steel Dogs. Your other 3 games on Saturday all face off at 7. Bristol take on Romford. MK take on Telford, which after last weekend's game should prove a little bit exciting and possibly have a little bit of grit to it. And then a 7 p.m. face-off between Peterborough and Swindon. Sunday, a 4:30 face-off as is normal in Sheffield on a Sunday. They take on the Swindon Wildcats. 5:15 face-offs in Leeds. They take on Telford, which is, given how close those two sides are towards the top of the table, should be fun. And then a clash at the bottom of the table where points will be very much wanted between the Raiders and the Pitbulls. And then 5:30 face-off of the world's most versatile arena. Hull and Solway have a home this weekend, so the Seahawks welcome the Sharks. And then Peterborough take on MK. We then, of course, have one game whilst we're streaming next week on the What's Current stream. 7:30 face-off between Telford and Peterborough. We, of course, keep tabs on that one as we go. Just having a quick look at the chat there. Leeds new imports and younger players will get better and better. The one player I'm really fascinated in at the moment for Leeds is Ollie Endicott. Really, really fascinated to see how he kind of pushes on this year. Really, really interested to see how that comes about. Looking back to last season, Gospel's better than Headley. Yes. Massive psychological boost for MK to win in Telford on Sunday and going some way to prove the doubts wrong about winning on the small ice. The issue for me, I don't actually think that's been much of a concern for me. My concern with MK is winning at the big moments when it counts and winning games in those important moments. And I don't just mean beating Leeds. I mean, I think back to games last year that they lost that they should have won against teams who were miles below them. And I think it's that consistency of really putting teams to bed when they have the opportunity to do so. Winning on small ice, it's never really been an issue for MK, in my opinion. Andrew, thank you very much. Popping in with the man with all the scores, Andrew Day. Fife leading in Nottingham against is quite hilarious. Guildford 1, Cardiff 2, currently in the Elite League. I don't know who scored that one. We're just going to very, very quickly check and see who has scored for Guildford, actually. Just because we can do. Should have a quick look and just actually see who scored that one. What's that there from Jamie? Telford with the hardest weekend in the national. Yeah, it's I mean, that's a pretty tough sort of stretch of days where you think about away in MK, away in Leeds, and then home against Peterborough. Peterborough as well, who are very clearly starting to turn a corner, is a bit of an interesting one. You know, the addition of Björkley Nordstrom has been pretty impressive so far. Let's just check who scored that goal for Guildford out of interest. He's only gone and done it. We mentioned him. Unassisted goal and his first in the Elite League for Sam Talbot in a Guildford Flames jersey. Congrats to him. Fantastic news. Well done, Sam Talbot. Brilliant, brilliant news there, just looking at that one. I'm delighted for that. I really, really am. He's a player who should have been in the Elite League a long time ago, and glad that he's been given the opportunity. Also, without giving too much away, Guildford and Cardiff might be a game I get a look at before too long. Let's just put that one out there. I'll leave that one dangling on. But yeah, that's great news for him. Obviously, not ideal the fact for him that Guildford are in fact losing. Just looking who's actually scored for Cardiff. Cole Sanford and Jamie Arneal. But there we go. Sam Talbot finally on the board in the Elite League. Great news. Really, really delighted about that. Questions, comments, stuff on the National League. What are we thinking then at the moment? Just looking at the league table myself. We'll just quickly press the button there and just pull it back up. Did you see the Fife coach trying Stovies for the first time? Yes, I did. Protect Tom Coolin at all costs. Great bit of social media. For those of you who aren't familiar with this, obviously Fife's coach Tom Coolin is new to the country, coached in a variety of places. Was coach of Katowice when they played in Belfast in the Continental Cup. But he's obviously brand new to Scotland. And he was on A View from the Bridge with Patrick and Davey and Simon Kitchen. And Simon Kitchen mentioned Stovies to him and he'd never tried them. And some genius in the Fife social media team has got him on camera trying a Stovey for the first time. And it is... I mean, this man is just hockey grandpa. He went on A View from the Bridge, didn't know the format of the Challenge Cup. Coaching in the league, didn't know the format. God love this man. He's, after Fife feeling very, very stagnant, and that's no disrespect meant to Todd Dutain, but the Flyers had gone stale as an organisation, and bringing in essentially hockey grandpa has been amazing because he's just such a nice man by the seam of it, but he's just a proper old school hockey grandpa, but he's not horrible with it, and he's just the sort of person the Flyers need, just that great change of direction, someone who can generate a bit of goodwill back towards that organisation. Isn't Shane Owen making like 1,000 saves a game? And the Flyers look so much better for it as well. A bit of a refresh of ideas. I'm not going to say an injection of youthful energy because that isn't Tom Coolin. He's an elder statesman in this game. But if you've not watched it, find the Five Flyers social media. Go watch it. It's hysterical. It's beautiful. Do it do it after the show. Like we'll find if needs be, I'll put it on the thing. I won't play it on here because I don't think it'll play very well. But definitely do check that out if you haven't already. But just looking at that table. Sheffield are obviously had a very, very mixed start. 4 and 5 from 9. I'm not, obviously it's been a bit of a, the start of the season feels like a bit of a mulligan for the Steel Dogs given all the changes. There's obviously going to be reportedly some changes to their ticket structure as well. Swindon, we just have to kind of write off for the moment just because of everything that's happening there. No immediate word left on the rink there. And also, what a surprise, no word on the rink in Basingstoke. Who'd have thought that one? But I think certainly that top 5 at the moment, if you told me that about 10 games in for the most part, that this would be the top 5, I don't think any of us would have believed it. Do you? Would you have had Bees and Hull in the top 5 10 games in? Because I don't think I immediately did. For me, the ceiling for the Bees in the immediacy across the entire breadth of the season was probably around the 5th or 6th. Like I say, the question for the Bees is, How do they make this translate into consistency? Isn't Talbot's issues and struggles in Guildford more to do with Paul Dixon than anything else? I think certainly Paul Dixon does not have the best reputation for for using young British players well, and I think that's a valid criticism that goes back to the elite, back to the EPL days. I think the thing as well, though, where Guildford have very clearly struggled this year, the one thing Paul Dixon in some ways can't do is take chances, but the one thing he needs to do is take chances. When things aren't going well, you need to change stuff. And actually, if changing one of those things is maybe giving Sam Talbot some more time in a more natural position for him, that'll work out very, very well. And I maintain that Belfast actually did this to an extent with Sean Norris. They didn't really use him brilliantly to start with, and then when they started using him more akin to his style of play, he did better. So maybe this is maybe it's been a good learning moment for Paul Dixon about maybe the best way to kind of utilise the guy. But hey, goal's a goal. It's on the record books forever now, so we can't change that. What we'll do there is just get rid of a few bits. Just put my ugly face back on there for the time being. And just quickly, like I said, we're just going to quickly have a try some other bits. And Abby says, still trying to figure out where the hell this echo is coming from. Oh dear, it makes no sense. I thought Hull would be a lot better this season, says Andrew. I think I did as well, but I think the big question, I think, for a lot of people, and it was still the same question actually for me with the Bees, it's consistency over the campaign, right? What's going to happen what's going to happen in 2-3 months' time? Because being good at the beginning is great. And I think back to the first season of the Knights, where they went racing out of the gate and then fell off the cliff. And that's where a large chunk of these issues are going to come. Can they maintain the winning ways? And when things don't go well, how does Dom Gabai adapt? How does Matty Davis adapt? Because the one thing Matty Davis, with all due respect to Matty, and I like Matty as a person. I have a massive amount of respect for him and the work him and Joe Lamplow have done in Hull. But Matty's not used to coaching a winning hockey team. And when things don't go well, what's the adjustment that Matty makes here? That's the big test of Matty Davis as a coach. And actually the same thing as Dom Gabai. The Bees last year were not very good. They were short benched the entire time and didn't work very well. Now they're winning. And actually what do the Bees do in a game where Dom gets shut down, Balach gets shut down, and Brithin Priest isn't having his best game? Where do his other guys pull him out of that situation? Rumour with the Swindon rink is they're trying to get it back up and running for somewhere in the middle of December. I mean, I'd heard that as well. I think what you do, though, is you under-promise to over-deliver. So saying January, given the fact that you'll hit a point in December and things will slow down naturally as people kind of hit Christmas. Because whether you believe in Christmas as a Christian festival or whatever, it's a natural time in British society where things slow down and people kind of it's kind of really the biggest rest we all get as a society of the year. En masse, obviously people work, but it doesn't. The pace of life slows down. So I think saying middle of December is great, but if it's not January, then people haven't. What's better, to say January and get it December, or say December and get it in January? What's better in that circumstance? Questions, comments, anything anybody else wants to chuck in? Please do. Like I say, is I will smack my audio settings around. If anybody has any great ideas as to what we can do to get rid of this blasted echo, it would be appreciated. Still just trying to have a quick look whilst we're talking. The thing is, it's all YouTube videos, which is really irritating. Just having a quick squiz here. Yeah, there's a lot of questions here, but not a lot of answers, which is fantastic. This is all... That's very irritating. Like I say, he just didn't do this last week at all, did it? And then out of nowhere, we just kind of... do that. We're just going to try something very quickly whilst we're chatting away. So apologies again for some of the tech issues. And if I talk again now, you can hear me. Very annoying. Oh well, we're going to have to persevere, I think, for tonight, and I'll have to look at it, or look at it in post, as it were. What we'll do then is we will scoot back. Anything above 8th is success for the Bees this season, despite the start. No, I'd agree. I'd agree, Nick. Making the playoffs has to be the thing for the Bees. Having talked, of course, to a lot of people. I mean, I don't just mean Joe, because of course Joe Scutts and I have now done a couple of commentaries. I will be back at some stage for the Bees, but it may not be for a couple. It may not be for a month or so, just because of other stuff going on. But I've said to the Bees, I'm quite happy to kind of help out as and when. I do know they do have a special guest co-commentator this coming weekend, so I think you'll enjoy that one. But certainly the sort of the talk around the Bees is not, and Graham Bauer said it in the summer, but they're kind of keeping with it, is that this season for the Bees is not about leaping from worst to first. It's steady build. This year is playoffs. Make the playoffs. Then it's push on and push on and push on. And that's the mentality they've had at the Bees the entire way through this process. They're being very consistent about it. And if somebody misbehaves, I assume they get locked in that new hospitality room, which is, as a Bison fan, boy, that looks odd. A lot of very hard work's got into it. I'm not sure it's not for me. It's just not for me, shall we say. North 1 then. Let's have a quick scoot at North 1. And the great trend continues. The Hull Jets are just unbeatable at home, it seems. A 6-1 win, the only game on Saturday. And they beat the Sheffield Scimitars very, very handily at the World's Most Versatile Arena by 6-1. And then subsequently lose the next night against Billingham by 6-3. I don't know what it is with Hull. Can Hull go the entire season by only winning at home and losing every away game? Where will this trend end? I'm really interested to see this. Because, of course, they've already beaten Whitley at home. They've beaten Billingham at home. And, yeah, they just seem to keep ploughing along with it. Elsewhere on Sunday, another decent win for the Widnes Wild. 5-3, they win in Blackburn against the Hawks. The Hawks' form has really taken a dip since Tate Shudra left for the National Division and the Sheffield Steel Dogs. So, yeah, the Hawks kind of need to rebound from that. A decent win for the Solihull Barons, of course, who've picked up form in the last couple of weeks. Was able to kind of sit down and watch a chunk of this game on Sunday. The Nottingham Lions were 6-4 up in the third period and ended up losing to the Barons in overtime by a score of 7-6. Another point for the Lions, nothing to be sniffed at, of course, for our friends from the NIC, but they'll be disappointed to have let this one slip. And then, wow, it's been a very wonky start for the Warriors, and it doesn't get any better. A huge win in the context of the D-side Dragon season. They win, and they shut out Whitley at Hillheads by 2-0. Since Andy McKinney and Peter Valesuk have returned to the Dragons roster, they have been on a tear, and that is a massive, massive win for the Welsh side. Just having a quick scoot then at the table in North 1, it looks like this. Now, Billingham, 4 points clear of the Barons, but the Barons have 3 games in hand. They win 3 games in hand would take the Barons top. Hull's ridiculous home record has them on 10 points in third place, along with Blackburn and Whitley, who are down as low as 5th with a 5-5 record. Definitely not something people expected out of the Warriors so far this season. Even with the new coaching staff, it's a lot of the same players. That team didn't get bad overnight, obviously. D-side are now up into 6th. They have 8 points. Nottingham have 6 from 9. Widnes have only played 7 games. They have 6 points. Good win for them this weekend. And the Scimitars, well, they already have 2 wins, which is 1 more than they got in the entirety of last year. But they are bottom currently on 4 points. If we look then at the fixtures for the upcoming weekend, another very light Saturday, just the one game. It's at Hobbsmoat Road. The Solihull Barons and the Widnes Wild is a 6:30 face-off in the Midlands. And then on Sunday, 1 o'clock face-off at Ice Sheffield for the Scimitars. They take on the Blackburn Hawks, two teams needing a win there after recent results. 5 p.m. face-off at Hillhead between the Whitley Warriors and the Widnes Wild. That could be a very, very interesting game given both teams' recent form. 5:30 at the Forum for Billingham and taking on the Nottingham Lions. 5:15 in North Wales for D-side against the Solihull Barons. Hull were unlucky on Sunday. 2 goals for the Stars were freak own goals. I mean, I haven't had the opportunity to look at any of the highlights or anything like that. I don't even know if the highlights are available, Andrew. But certainly Hull just seem to be a very, very odd team. They just can't do it on the road. I imagine that first road win is going to be particularly well received within the locker room. All things considered there. I'm finding North 1 very interesting, and mostly interesting just around just how bizarre some of the results are. Clearly Billingham and Solihull at the moment look to be the strongest side. But what is up with Whitley? I'd be really interested. I know there's a few folk from the north who kind of catch up on the stream rather than watching live. So please do drop me a line. I'd be really fascinated to kind of hear what's happening with Whitley this year. New GM, new coach, a lot of the same roster though. So I would really appreciate anybody who's able to kind of shed some light. I obviously can't just drive up to Whitley Bay on the regular and kind of watch a game there. So any help I can kind of get to just improve my knowledge, massively appreciated. Going the wrong side of the country for in just over a week's time to go to Whitley, unfortunately. But like I say, always wanting to learn, always wanting to get better. So if anybody from the north is able to kind of shed some light on that, I'd really appreciate it. South 1 then, which is where I was last weekend. We'll talk very briefly. Obviously, there, as you can see, Slough continue their decent run, but the Romford Buccaneers have been a very, very have a really interesting last couple of weeks. Running teams close, beating Chelmsford. They took a point out of Slough on Saturday, beat Oxford recently as well. Brindley Caps appears to just be on an absolute tear himself. Now, we talked about Slough and that ridiculous top line, which is, by the looks of it, going to be taking a bit of a dent, and we'll talk about that momentarily. But yeah, the Buccaneers not willing to go away quietly. Of course, if you want something with a bit more focus directly on South 1, Zero Pucks Given, of course, do go check out what Ben's doing there. Very much a South 1 focused podcast, and if you want a bit more sort of in-depth stuff, the coach's viewpoint bits that he does on his podcast, great little addition. So you can hear from pretty much every coach in the division. There's a couple who don't, Lucas. So definitely get on and do check that out. And then that's where I was on Saturday. You've got the write-up on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Solent and Oxford, which are two teams that I've done some bits and pieces with. Of course, with me kind of being a bit of a freelance, I'm kind of all over the place. But two teams I've sort of helped out a little bit this year. And of course, you'll have seen, it's on here on the YouTube channel. I'm going to be doing this kind of series over the course of the year with the Solent Devils, called The Details in the Devils, where just trying to open the door a little bit. Solent as a club have been a bit introverted, and kind of having had a chat with Alex Murray, who's sort of the head coach and kind of does everything for the Devils. One of the things we kind of wanted to do was to give their fan base and kind of the wider world a bit of a look inside the club. And it's kind of using me to my skill set as well. I think one of the things I do very well is I interview people very well, and kind of getting this sort of inside look. So if you go look on the YouTube channel here, the first interview I've done is with Harry Cloutman, who is a defenseman for the Devils. He's also the coach of their Division 2 side. He's 21 and coaching their second division side, as well as playing in the first team. And he's also the son of legendary British official Dave Cloutman. You can tell that just by watching it. If you're not familiar with Dave Cloutman, boy, did you miss out. But certainly very pleased to be able to kind of help the Devils out and do some different stuff. Fascinating game, this. Really, really enjoyed it. Definitely, I'd really appreciate if you go and read the report and let me know what you think. If you get the opportunity to watch either of these two sides this year, do. Now, Oxford had a pretty poor start to the year, all things considered. And Solent's has been a bit more up and down. But they are fascinating watches. I mean, people talk about, it's not real hockey at Gosport. And it's different hockey at Gosport. It's so unusual. that it appeals to the person in me that likes telling good stories, and I think that's kind of why. Aside from the fact the Devils are very, very close to me, being Southampton-based, Gosport's not a million miles away. It's about 45 minute drive. I can get home in 35 minutes with the traffic being clear. But there's some stories to be told there, and that's kind of the thing I like to do in hockey. And there's a lot of stories and a lot of people that people just don't really know about. And Solent as a club, like I say, they've not been very good about blowing their own trumpet. And actually, one of the things I think they need to do is to celebrate their successes a bit more, kind of step out of the shadows a little bit. It's been a bit sort of no one likes us, we don't care mentality. And that's absolutely fine. That works for teams and that works for clubs. But there's good people doing good work there. And they kind of decide, they need to decide to kind of walk out and be in the light and kind of say, we're here. And we're different, and that's not a bad thing. And we do good work here too. Fascinating game. Liam Coleman with the overtime winner there in Gosport, which was that result is entirely fair. I think the amount of effort that Oxford put in, they kind of deserved a point. Did they deserve to win? I don't know. I think Solent were the better team across the 62, 63 minutes. So can't really argue that one. Other results then from Sunday. MK going down 5-2 at home to the Chelmsford Chieftains, a decent result there. And, well, Oxford can't repeat their heroics against Streatham from a couple of weeks ago. Streatham with a 7-2 win against the City Stars. And then the revert, Romford and Slough meet in Romford. It's a 9-3 win for the Jets. Of course, we've had Luke Smittle return to the lineup on a two-way deal, and he might be in for a bit more action than first anticipated. Christian Moore, part of that holy trinity, that free-scoring top line for the Jets, gets a game misconduct for checking from behind. As a Tier 1 offence, that's a 6-game suspension if that's not rescinded. That's a fair old timeout, considering the low amount of games played in South 1. That could have quite a big impact. Although Jack Goodchild and Sebastian Moore, Christian's brother, appear to be absolutely fine scoring without him, it should be said. If we look very quickly at the table in South 1, just get it reload. Slough, as you can see, are still top, 16 points from their 11 games played. Streatham, though, with their win, they keep pace. 3 games in hand would put them top. Chelmsford also have 12 points. They've played a game more than Streatham. Invicta, who didn't play last weekend, they have 8 from 6. Solent 6 from 6 now after their win, a 500 record for Alex Murray's side. Romford with their point are up to 6th place. They have 5 points from 9. Oxford's point in their defeat against Solent lifts them off the bottom for the first time this season. They have 3 from 8, but MK have only played 5 games. They have 2 points as winning those games in hand, which admittedly might be a bit tough for the Thunder, but that could, of course, push themselves up into the mid-table should they get that far. Let's have a look then. We've got a few things in the chat. I have a friend who's a Warriors fan who was asking me about Josh Hodgkinson, and he told me he was puzzled. But when you take away Dean Holland and other big players out of the equation, I like Josh Hodgkinson. I think he's got a real upside to him. It's about harnessing that. And I think that's kind of it's just how he gets used. Swindon fans still don't forgive Dave Clampman for that decision. They haven't. They should, because it was the right call. That's the big problem there. For people unfamiliar, it is the 2014 EPL playoff semi-final between the Swindon Wildcats and the Manchester Phoenix. Dave Clampman called Aku Pakarainen for a hook behind the goal, which put Manchester on the power play in overtime. The biggest issue there for Swindon was they overplayed their top line and then put them out as penalty killers, and they were all tired and got scored on. And then what happened? Well, Basingstoke won the playoffs anyway. So there we go on that front. But yes, Dave still gets booed, although I think it's probably a little bit in jest. If you never got the opportunity to see Dave Clampman ref, you will see him dotted around, popping into rings here, there and everywhere. Lovely gentleman. I appreciate the fact that Dave as well has taken the time on many occasions when I've sort of said something, he'll give me the context. Doesn't hold it against me that I may have said something he disagreed with. This is why I think it's this way, Anthony. And normally, Dave's pretty much spot on, so you kind of let him go with it. Used to watch Oxford in the 90s. Is there a nightclub still next to the rink? There isn't, no. Sorry about that, Andrew. You might have to change your plans if you come down. Thank you, John. Bucks have some real talent, they do, but don't have heavyweight drop-down bully or imports. But Spirit and Belief, well worth a watch if they're coming to your ring. Yeah, I mean, certainly I think my seeing some of their results recently has made me change my opinion on some bits and pieces like that. My issue is just fitting it all in with everything else. Am I going to get the chance to watch the Buccaneers? I kind of want to now. They certainly the thing I'm finding with South One is I'm enjoying the games in South One. It's not the highest standard, not by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm relishing just the ability to watch hockey this year, and I've been really fortunate to be able to do a bunch of like really different things. So. Seeing it in different ways, like even that Guildford Phoenix based at Buffalo game I went to in Div 2, and I'm going to another Div 2 game this coming weekend. But that ability to just see stuff I didn't get the opportunity to see, I'm just trying not to take it for granted this year. As for Billingham Stars, Andy Finn came out of retirement and has gone straight onto the first line. The jokes write themselves, Andy. Thank you very much for that one, Andrew. What we will do, he says he's just trying to line everything up here, because it means I have to press this button. And we get North 2. Not many. The game didn't have a face-off time there in Altrincham. But Sutton, of course, having lost their perfect record last weekend, the previous weekend against Telford, back to winning ways with a 9-2 win over the Altrincham Aces. But Telford, of course, keeping pace. They give Bradford an absolute tonking, a 14-4 win for the Tigers at home there with that. So they know they've augmented some of their face-offs to be slightly earlier now. So if you are planning on going to a game, a Telford Tigers 2 game, ask Karen. She'll be the person in the know. And then only 2 games on Sunday. Bradford with a 0-point weekend from their 2 games. They lose 5-3 at home to the Coventry NIHL Blaze. And a tight game here, actually. Kingston have not had the best starts to the season. They run Sheffield close, but not close enough. A 7-6 win for the Titans against the Sharks on Sunday afternoon, which means that the North 2 table looks like this. Sutton remain top, but Telford have 4 games in hand. They would go top if they won all of them. The Coventry Blaze, though, still kind of about keeping pace. 9 games played, 14 points is a pretty good start for the year. The Blaze, of course, missing out on the playoffs in the final weeks of last season, will be looking to really establish themselves in the playoff place this time out. The Titans, then, after their win, have 9 points from 9. They're in 4th. Billingham, 6 from 5. Bradford, 5 from 8. Altrincham have only played 5 games. They have 4 points. Of course, if they won some of those games in hand, it would propel them much higher up the table. Nottingham, 3 from 8. And Kingston still to register a point. The 7 games played, 7 defeats for them. Although, of course, they've greatly enhanced their scoring statistics by the fact that they actually put 6 goals in on Sunday. They hadn't scored much in the way of anything at all. A pretty full docket of games there this weekend in North 2, as we can see from Saturday there. 8 of the 9 teams in action. 4:40 face-off at Ice Sheffield. Sutton Sting take on the Nottingham Lions, followed afterwards at 7:40 by the Sheffield Titans taking on the Billingham Buccaneers. 5:30 though at the World's Most Versatile Arena. Kingston versus Telford. That could be a long night for the Sharks. And then 7 p.m. face-off at the Sky Dome. The NIHL Blaze take on the Altrincham Aces in Coventry. A couple of games then on Sunday. Altrincham take on Bradford. No idea what the face-off time is. It'd be really appreciated, Altrincham, if you could publish your face-off times, or at least tell Joe so we can update the website. A 6 o'clock face-off in Telford as the Tigers 2 take on the Sheffield Titans, and then the small pad at the National Ice Centre sees the Nottingham Lions take on the Coventry NIHL Blaze. I'm keeping tabs on the Blaze a little bit more, having seen them pre-season against the Buffalo. And they seem to really have kind of found their stride a bit this season, the Blaze. They had a really rocky start and sort of ramped their way up towards the end of the season. And like I said, just missed out on the playoffs at the death. For people not familiar, Div 2 in the North, they only do a 14 playoff format, rather as opposed to the other divisions that all do 8. In South 1, everybody makes it. Whereas North 2 have always played it as a 14 playoff for the last couple of years. So that ability to get into those top spaces is very big for the Blaze. What they need to be able to do, of course, is hold that position. What we need to do then is we just quickly need to press some buttons. Like I say, we don't have tons and tons of North 2 fans. Karen, of course, Telford fan, who's a big watcher of the Tigers' second side, and usually pops into the chat, but always good to see folk from there. And then what, of course, we do need to do, that leaves us with South 2, and most of the big hitters early doing the business in their games this weekend. Most of them having some games on Saturday. Bristol with a pretty convincing win down in the southeast. They beat Chelmsford by 7 goals to 1 at the Riverside. And the same scoreline at Alexandra Palace, albeit this time the home team with the win there. The battle of the capital cities. Haringey with the 7-1 win over Cardiff means the points stay in London, and South Wales has to go disappointed on this one. Peterborough then with a 4-2 win at home against the Basingstoke Buffalo. Tough weekend for the Buffaloes. Some really, really good effort and some really, really good play, but just not getting the rewards at the moment. They lose in Peterborough on Saturday and they get shut out at home 2-0 by Guildford, which, having lost 7-3 in the Spectrum a couple of weeks ago, is an improved performance. Dan Weller-Evans facing 102 shots across the 2 games this weekend. Not bad for a man who had retired just about a year ago. But the Buffalo feel like they're getting there. They just need to be able to do something. It also travelled very light to Peterborough. They, having spoken to a couple of people in the camp, they've got a pretty full roster this weekend at home, so they're looking to try and get a result this coming weekend when Peterborough visit Basingstoke. 2 games then from Sunday, and a bad weekend for the Fire. They lose 4-1 at home to last year's playoff champions, the Invicta Mustangs. And then, well, my latest interviewee, Harry Cloutman, and his boys, they get a pretty decent win again at home. The Solent Junior Devils with a 6-2 win against the Oxford Rising Stars. The Rising Stars haven't played tons of games yet, but they're not getting the results, whereas the Junior Devils, who didn't win much of anything last year, seem to slowly be crawling their way into contention. With a 21-year-old player coach getting help out where he can, Harry Cloutman starting to prove himself very, very worthy of the title. If we look then at the table, it is very much kind of a case of, like I say, those big heavy hitters doing the business early, and a couple of teams still with a perfect record. Peterborough top at the moment on tiebreakers. They have 10 points from 6 games. Haringey have a perfect start, 10 points from 10. Bristol have already lost a couple of games. They have 9 points. They've already played 8 games though, so it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle for the Pitbulls if the other teams around them don't start taking themselves out. Guildford have only played 4 games so far, but they are perfect through those forward. Have only conceded 7 goals in 4 games. Otherwise then, Invicta are in 5th place. They have 6 from 5. Streatham 6 from 6. Chelmsford 6 from 8. And Solent in a playoff position as it stands currently. They have 6 points from 6. Cardiff also have 6 points from 7, but lose out on the tiebreakers at the moment. And then there is a bit of a drop down, as it were. The Buffalo have played 6 games, have only got 2 points, which, given the play, you look at that goal difference ratio, that's not too bad. 21 goals in 6 games isn't terrible, but they need to find ways to win games. Yet to win on the road are the Buffalo, with just the one lone home win that first weekend of the season where they tonked Streatham. Oxford have only played 3 games, they have 2 points from that. Lee Valley have played 4 games, they are yet to register a point. So then we look at this upcoming weekend, and well, Lee Valley ran them very close and they played at the new rink in the north of London, but they have to travel to Alexandra Palace on Saturday, a 5:30 face-off at Ali Pally for the Huskies and the Lions, and then 2 games on Sunday, one of which I will be at in Basingstoke. The Buffalo and the Peterborough Phantoms will go head-to-head, having met last weekend in Peterborough, and then the Chelmsford Warriors welcome Lee Valley for the Lions' second game of the weekend. That is a 6 o'clock face-off at the Riverside. The discipline of 2 former officials who now ice the Buccaneers left a lot to be desired. Well, let me put it this way. When my son comes out of school, having had to concentrate really, really hard all day, and he struggles to concentrate, he has what I call a blowout period. Having had to behave for a while, they don't have to behave quite as well. And maybe this is them having a bit of a blowout. Either way, we've gone through the whole lot, all 5 divisions, every game we have touched on, we have gone through the fixtures for last weekend. The NIHL is covered in its fullest sense. That's what you get here on the What's Current stream. Every game in every possible way, and we try our very, very best to do it. And it should be a whale of a weekend. But that, of course, means we've hit that point where the door is open. Questions, comments, free reign, NIHL hockey, any other hockey we want to talk about there. Andrew's chucked in the scores. The Panthers have come from behind to lead at the end of the second in Nottingham. They lead Fife by 2 goals to 1. Cardiff now leading by 4 goals to 2 at the Spectrum against the Guildford Flames. But yeah, free reign, folks. What do we want to talk about? Questions, comments, anything else? Any other hockey? NHL's obviously kicked off. I took some time to watch some Austrian hockey. That's the joy of having having a VPN, which allows me to do such things. Who scored the other goal for Guildford? Ryan Hughes. They've not taken the goal off the sand tool, but yeah, which is nice. Just having a look and just seeing if there's any big news. Have Dops decided to chuck anything out whilst we've been talking? Not in the immediacy. Is the is the immediate thing there? But yeah, so from a BOTW perspective, this weekend I'm at Basingstoke versus Peterborough, and then the weekend after that I'll be in Dumfries for Solway versus Swindon, which is why I'm quite close to home this weekend. Just sort of promised the wife I'd be nearby, going out on this, doing the Sunday evening and just doing a nice sort of easy game, nice easy trip. I can do that Basingstoke drive in my sleep. What other bits we got here? Caps are bad at the moment. At least the Penguins are just as bad. Joined at hip. Yeah, very, very much so. At least Ovi's finally scored for the season, which is nice. IHL have released their schedule for the season. That starts in April. They have, Karen, the Australians have said that the Australians have had a bit of an interesting moment because the company that ran the streaming service went into administration. Now, they've said that there will be AIHL TV in the similar format for next year, so that should hopefully be good. AIHL TV was a good rather than a great streaming product last year. There's obviously improvement that definitely needed to be made to it. But an increased schedule this upcoming for the 2024 AIHL season is my understanding. More games. The conference format is remaining from what I understand. I will just very, very quickly try pulling up the schedule announcement here. So talking about the fact they've had increased sort of numbers, etc., etc. For those who, of course, who forgot, the Melbourne Mustangs won the 2023 Goodall Cup. So 10 teams, 15 home, 15 away, so 150 games rather than the 135 total schedule last year. So that is an increase, of course, for teams. Two conferences remain. And the finals will actually be in August of next year. The final weekend of August in 2024, we'll see the AIHL finals weekend at the O'Brien Icehouse in Melbourne's Docklands area. AIHL TV says all games to be streamed live, as well as the finals. Package details to be released before the season starts. Included loyalty incentives to our 2023 streamers who enjoyed Year 1, which is nice. I paid for that, so I am very, very pleased that I will be able to. I'll be pleased that I'll be able to potentially benefit from getting some sort of discount potentially, which is really, really cool. But some great bits and pieces to see here, including a 20% growth. I'm not sure what they mean here by 20% growth in fans, players, and engagements. Well, of course, you had a growth in players, because you had 2 extra teams that you didn't have the year before. What is very interesting to see here, and one thing that British hockey could learn, there is an AIHL Players Association. Robert Malloy, captain of the Central Coast Rhinos, was very, very heavily involved in that. So really interested to see whether such a thing would ever take off in Britain again. I know there's obviously been mooted lots of times over the last couple of years, but it's never really come to it. The other thing we should talk about, actually, is DOPS. Because DOPS themselves, even though they've not announced any new bits and pieces, there was, of course, today, which generated a bit of discussion, was they were putting out for some media officers to help with DOPS. And this immediately sort of generated a bit of discussion about, clearly they've not, I know Nikki from 4,000 Accounts said, well, clearly they've not watched our interview. I know for a fact they have. I know for a fact that the head of that Mike Maiden's the head of the person sort of in charge of DOPS has watched it, and I know and I did mention, Ben from Zero Pucks Given sort of mentioned about we should have hockey people involved in this, but this particular job, actually no. And I think this is one of those things to kind of come around again. If you didn't see it from last week, I did ask about the 50%, the £50 fee for evidence to submit anything for an appeal, and that's to do with the extra time that it takes, paying the barrister to do it essentially. Which is which was a bit of a strange one for me in that one. But this role that they've put out today for media officers for DOPS, media officers will be required to work closely with the DOPS team to analyse game footage and clip down videos to highlight incidents, maintaining the media library as appropriate. So this is a role of clipping the video, finding the incidents, and putting them in a position for the people who are in the panels to look at it. This is your reminder. Mike Maidens does not make decisions for DOPS. So where people sort of say, oh, it's a non-hockey person making decisions on discipline. He's not making decisions on discipline. The question is about the appeals and having a barrister involved. What is a potential what is a barrister or any person involved in that thing? What are they doing? Are they looking at the grounds for appeal under the rules and saying, you're saying you can appeal because of this and we're saying no? Or are they looking at the incident and saying no? Now, for me, that video still doesn't show that. I've had some people who were there saying he's definitely caught him on the chin, but the video doesn't show that. Is still the thing on that Darcy Flanagan incident. Now, having hockey people involved in making the decisions, and my understanding is that the panels are made up of people like ex-officials and ex-coaches and bits and pieces like that. People have been involved in the game. The people involved in the people doing the announcing of stuff are not making the decisions. They are administrating. They're administering the system. And I get this idea that people want hockey people involved in it, hockey people, whatever that means in that kind of sense. As if, the people who would be volunteering to do such things wouldn't be at least involved in the sport. But the role that's come out today, the bigger issue here is that they don't appear to be compensating anybody for their time, doing it as a volunteer thing, where actually they want people with a skill set, i.e. video editing, and don't want to pay them. That's a bigger issue, and thanks to Stu Coles for shouting that one out loud earlier. But this idea that that an ex-player needs to do this particular job, I personally disagree. I think actually I'd much rather have a really, really good video editor who's able to at least basically read the game. And even then, if an incident is orchestrated by X and you're wanting to send a video, common sense dictates you don't need to be a hockey fan to know that you don't just show the hit. You show the build-up to the hit, and you show the aftermath of the hit. That's basic editing knowledge. Like I'm not a very, very good video editor. Lord knows we all know that. I do a live show for that very reason. But the idea that we have to kind of get past this point that non-hockey people, or that someone who hasn't played the game to a high standard, can't be involved in these ways. Because ultimately, what am I doing? Over a decade's worth of writing about it. Am I a hockey person now? Never played. I played one charity game. I skate like a giraffe with an inner ear problem. Am I a hockey person or am I not? Could I do this job? Or because I've not played, can I not do it? And I think what we need to get past is adequate people doing those roles and not worrying so much. Get those people who understand the game at its base level, making the hockey decisions, but having somebody administer the process. Do they need to have played 10 games, 100 games, 200 games, 1,000 games? Where's the line for people? And I think that's the thing I struggle with sometimes, is that we gatekeep a little bit too much on getting people involved, because actually the person who may not have the best reading of your 1314 check might be really, really good at video editing, and they might be really good at doing this, and they might be really good at chasing people up and saying, "Oi, you've not submitted your video. Video's not an instat. You need to do this now, otherwise we'll report you and get a fine." What we want is people who are passionate about it, are prepared to put their time and their effort in, that they should get some compensation for it, let's be honest, but also that they'll do the job well. And actually we need, if an ex-player is wanting to do it and an ex-player can do it, great, apply, do it. Admittedly, I much prefer ex-players to go down the officiating route more, thanks to Adam Bicknell. But we have to get past this mentality, and it's a really frustrating mentality that people say, that I hear from people, that only ex-players can do certain jobs. Because this job is not something an ex-player needs to do. Could do it, of course they could. But do they need to be clipping video and keeping the video library? Is that a must for that one? Would I much rather have an ex-official being the head of the DOPS panel? 100%. That's the sort of thing where you need somebody with an expertise in reading the game, being in the game, and understanding the intricacies of the game. That's the sort of role that needs to be an ex-player or an ex-official. Or at least have a panel where you've got a mixture of maybe an ex-coach, an ex-official, an ex-player. Have that sort of mix. That's absolutely fine, but we've got to get past this idea. Bob McKenzie is arguably the best hockey journalist in the world, never played hockey to a high level. The idea that you need to be an ex-player to do stuff in this sport does not fly. It just doesn't. Like I say, that's the question for the people who say that. Am I a hockey person, yes or no? That's all I kind of have to say on that front. Because there's an element of some of this stuff that I think I know, with my knowledge and my reading of the game, I could do quite well. It's why I've gone towards doing some more of this commentary. One, because I really enjoy it. I actually find it quite fun. I find it a really interesting mental task to do. But also because I think I can read the game quite well now. 12 years of writing about it. Where are we? I'm nearly at the point where I've been watching hockey for 19 years. Am I a hockey person now or am I not? And I think that's the thing we kind of need to get past in some of these areas. Get people who are passionate and get people who can do the job well. And then really focus on getting the people in those roles that need to have ex-players or need to have ex-officials in. And stop worrying so much about what it means. Do you think DOPS doesn't have enough transparency? This is an argument I had last year before DOPS became a thing, Andrew. I don't know whether you were aware, where I had a conversation quite a lot with Andrew Miller, former director of the IHA, current official on Ice Official. And one of the conversations I had with him was that we needed names of people because you needed to open up the transparency. And the argument was always, if we let people know the names, they get abuse. And we don't think it's fair to subject them to that. The IHA maintains that view now, and I find it frustrating, but that's why Mike Maidens is there. He is there as that front focal point of he's the person running the department, but people do need to get this through their heads that Mike Maidens does not make disciplinary decisions. He pulls everything together, but he's not the person making the decisions. Which former Basingstoke legend was the top scorer in the Australian League? I'll say Kevin Conway in hope. I don't really know the answer to that one. Not many Basingstoke players I know played in Australia. Doug Shepherd played in Australia. Ryan O'Keefe played in Australia. Not many I know played in Australia itself. There are hockey players who have experience in TV media. Yeah, and they're there because they're hockey players. In some ways, some of these skills are easier to translate. You have a person like PK Subban who is naturally charismatic, and you can teach a man to do that. Not everybody, obviously. Some people are pundits for their sport and they have all the charisma of a brick. Hello, Michael Owen. But there's some bits and some of these skills do translate, but people seem really obsessed about having that ex-player involvement in and actually in some things like I say, this media officer role for DOPS, it's not a necessity. Let's die on the hill of making sure that we have ex-players, ex-officials, ex-coaches on the panels making those decisions. Let's do that. Let's focus in that area. And then get talented, skillful people whose time should be compensated for doing those other bits and pieces and helping the administration bit. To give you the example at work, in my regular life, I've had the day off work today, which is great. But during the week, I work in the NHS. And I work across a multi-site GP practice, and I do a lot of administrative bits and pieces for that, and I will fix things, and I will do stuff for our computer system. Now, could you teach my GP about IT? Probably. A general practitioner is a smart person, by definition. To get a medical degree, you can't be an idiot. But one of these two, if you've got me and one of my doctors, one of these two people is better and qualified to practice medicine. One of these people has 15 years worth of experience of doing administrative work within the NHS. Who are you going to ask to fix the computer, and who are you going to ask to prescribe you aspirin? Use people where their talents are. Don't fret so much about their background. Oh, it was Kevin Conway, I was right. Raiders seem to have lost both Bison players to injury temporarily. Both real quality Raiders struggling to work out how to use them. Seem to have relatively isolated performances. Yeah, I think there's an overall issue, I think, with the Raiders at the moment where everything just isn't clicking for them. And I think that's something they kind of need to work on. George Norcliffe getting injured, obviously, is problematic for them. The other thing it's probably worth noting is that Zach Milton's not really been injured. He's been in the Guildford Flames lineup the last couple of weeks. He's playing for Guildford tonight. He played for Guildford at the weekend. So obviously he did get injured at one point, but he's not done He's been playing for Guildford whilst they've been import short and poor performances and the like. Should also be said, actually, Sam Talbot has a goal. Has only played 3 minutes of ice time in 2 periods tonight. Zach Milton's played 2 minutes and 42 seconds and is a -2. Then again, so is Jordan Klimek, so yikes. Tough one there. Tough one there for the Flames. 4-2 down as they are. Third period ongoing now. But yes, tough one, that one for the Raiders. Like I say, there just seems to be a bit of sort of a mental reset that kind of needs to happen in Romford at the moment. Maybe some changes will happen, I don't know. But they're also, of course, still waiting on this third import, which doesn't help. Suffering from the same issues that Hull suffered from last year. Maybe they need the MP to talk about it in Parliament. By the way, we're about 9:15. Thank you for putting up with this ridiculous echo the entire week. I'll try and get it fixed during the week ahead of next week. But yeah, final call, I think, for questions and comments and bits and pieces like that. So just chuck bits and pieces in the chat and we'll kind of roll things from there. Let's have a quick look as to what else is happening. What's happening in Nottingham? They're still 2-1 ahead against Fife. By the look of it. So just very quickly check the any other news anywhere coming through. Not tons. By the looks of it, nothing in the immediacy leaping out at people. I mean, that's the other thing, just very quickly to note, is that Ben Norton is backing up the Cardiff Devils this evening, so he's on the bench for Cardiff, obviously. Tyler Wall, their new netminder, not quite in the country yet, is my understanding, so Norton being called up from his two-way, but a great way to use him as well. Stick Bounds in goal for the game. Ben Bounds likes being busy, so the fact he's got to play another game is not a terrible idea, but should be fun. Just seen as well, I know he's been sort of planning it for a while, but man we've been talking about a lot recently in a lot of different places. Darcy Flanagan of the Oxford City Stars is on 0 pucks given this week. Should be very, very interesting. I know he's living with Dylan Hullaby, so there's probably a few bits and pieces, a few stories he's got there as well. Flanagan as well, a long-time AIHL player, played in Sweden as well, so that should be a fascinating chat when that comes live. I'll be listening to that one for sure. Right, definitely last call then, folks. Last call on everything. And like I say, a big thank you for putting up with this weird echo this evening. I've not changed any audio settings, so I really don't know what's caused this at all. That's what's so frustrating about it, is when these sort of weird things happen and there's just no explanation for them at all. That's what the really frustrating thing on that front, but such is life. These are the joys of trying to do these things. Speaking of Paul Dixon a few years ago, he told me he found it hard to trust the Brits. That's Paul Dixon's problem. I think on that front, I would. I get why to an extent, but it strikes me as a problematic thing. There is no echo for me. There definitely is for me, Karen. So apologies about that. It's getting on my nerves, if nothing else. One thing that I found with OBS, actually, the software I use, is it's not great for being able to sort of change settings midstream, as it were. I sort of have to turn it off and turn it back on, but I won't do that right now. Either way, I think we'll call time now. But yeah, Paul Dixon saying he found it hard to trust the Brits. That's entirely for him. I think that he should more, but that's his decision. He coaches, not me. What do you think of Leeds' new signing, Jordan Boysa? No, I definitely mentioned Jordan Boysa. He's a quality player at this level. Frustrating he doesn't seem to be able to really break through at elite league level, but it's going to be big for Leeds. Since start, it's been okay the rest of the time. Maybe it's just me then. Apologies, I'm losing my marbles then. But like I say, there's definitely a real issue for me here, which is irritating to try and do when you sort of hear yourself like half a second afterwards. But hey, there we go. We will call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL. Follow me through my journey this season. Banners on the Road is the way you can keep up with all the games. Long, in-depth analysis with bits and pieces from every game that I go to across any division that I go to. Like I say, I'll be in Basingstoke this coming Saturday, Dumfries the weekend after, and after that, I've got some planning to do. apparently, but you've also got 12 years worth of back catalogues worth of stuff, including Hockey Stories series, sometimes in written form, sometimes in video form, sometimes in audio forms and all sorts, but long form, in-depth pieces of content from the weird, wonderful and wacky world of hockey, from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war and beyond, from the NIHL all the way to the NHL. There's something for everybody in our Hockey Stories series. The back catalogue of the old BOTW podcast is there, as well as Dice Hockey, our tabletop ice hockey game. It's free to download. You can play it with a few bits and pieces around your house when you've got the rule sheet. If you do download it and you do like it, all I ask is that you consider making a small donation to Parkinson's UK. My dad has Parkinson's. Parkinson's sucks, and it'd be really great to work towards money for research and a cure. That would be really appreciated. But there is a ton of stuff for you to enjoy over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Facebook.com/bannersonthewall. If you like getting news through your Facebook feed, go hit the like button. Everything that goes through the website will go onto there, as well as links to a bunch of other bits and pieces. Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, is @BannersOTW. That's the best place to catch up with me, and you kind of get this sort of rolling commentary on what's happening with hockey from across the world. That's one of the best ways to catch it. The links for all of those bits and pieces are down there in the description, as well as the virtual busking hat that we have. Buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. Banners on the Wall's never going behind a paywall, but of course, with some increased costs this year, just sticking out the busking hat from time to time. If you enjoy what we do, the first thing you can really do, share it out, tell your friends, get some more eyes on it. That's the big thing for me. And subscribe to the YouTube channel too. That'd be great too. But if you do want to contribute financially and say, this, I really enjoy this, please keep going. And like I say, just help me cover some of my costs for this year. Hit the link in below, buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. Every penny is appreciated. It all goes back into doing BOTW stuff. It doesn't go anywhere else, so that's appreciated. And of course, we are live here on YouTube every Wednesday night, the BOTW What's Current stream, the first and the best live show to cover everything across the NIHL. Make sure you hit the like button on the video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, go and check all the stuff on there. There's like years worth of content on there, interviews with people, with the movers and shakers of British hockey, coaches, owners, officials. Like I say, this new video series I'm doing with the Solent Devils, the details in the Devils. There's going to be lots of interviews with some of those guys. Get to hear from some people you may not interview. And like I say, new hockey stories coming soon. I just need to kind of sort out some dates with our interview subject. But very, very happy to get this one over the line. If we can get it over the line, should be a lot of fun. Someone I think people will be really interested to hear from in that sort of long, in-depth way that I usually try to do. But yeah, like I say, a bunch of stuff here that you can get from everything I do under the Banners on the Wall headline. Of course, like I say, we're back next Wednesday at 8. Thanks for sticking with us. Like I say, I appreciate I've been complaining a bit about my setup. I appreciate some of you haven't had the issue. I'm really pleased to hear that. But I said, Dop surprise Tyson import isn't getting both barrels. Looked like a slash to the head on Saturday, considering the Oxford ban. If you didn't get a penalty, John, it would be interesting to see. The other team would have to request a review on that front. But yeah, there we are. All 5 divisions done. Every game done. Every fixture talked about. And a few other bits and pieces besides, which sets us up nicely for another weekend of hockey here in Britain. So be happy. And if you can't be happy, then please do, wherever you are, please do what you can to please be safe. As my friend Scotty Ross would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe. And so long till next time. Have a good weekend wherever you find your hockey, folks. We'll see you back here next Wednesday, live at 8 PM for the BOTW.